Behold, the Dramatic Capture Series Nemesis Bridge. Yes, this is the set of Megatron, Shockwave, and Soundwave. Plus they threw in Laserbeak as a Nemesis bridge set. And I'm gonna go through these three figures, which are repaints, but we'll check them out, see about the quality, see about the deco, and maybe this is something you wanna get for your collection. Be right back. Okay, so this is obviously the bridge set. It comes in a black box from Hasbro that just says Dramatic Capture Series, but I took it out of that box so I could show you this really cool piece of artwork, which it's hard to see with the glaring lights, but on the back it shows the various figures, the Megatron, Shockwave and Soundwave, along with Laserbeak, and their alt modes and all that wonderful stuff. We're gonna put that over here and we're gonna break these out, go through them one by one. By the way, they call me Captain Kyle, long story. And if you're new to the channel, welcome aboard. If you're a long time watcher, or even a short time watcher, thanks for coming back. All right, so I have these clippers here. Now I'm gonna use them to release these bots from their bonds. The things actually feel kind of rubbery, but there's not a ton of restraints on them, which is pretty cool. However, the plastic itself is a bit of a challenge. You gotta wiggle it just a little bit. So I finally got all the bots and the accessories out. It does come with instructions, which, you know, can come in handy if you haven't transformed them in a while or ever. But I do want to point out, it is kind of neat on the box that it actually has a kind of gray brownish picture. Kind of hard to see on this camera, but it's the Nemesis. So that makes sense. All right, let's see what we got here. We have Megatron. We have Shockwave. We have Soundwave. We have Laserbeak. We have Megatron's sword gun thing and his little shield attachment thing that goes on it. And we do have Soundwave's two weapons that come along with him. This weird looking sonic gun, I don't know what it is. It's a gun. And his standard gun. Now, we can put Laserbeak in here for now and close it up just for storage, but we'll get him out later on. Now we also have the command chair, and guess what? It's the exact same command chair or throne used by Starscream. So what a way to reuse a prop that some people just were like, I don't care about it. It even has all the things so Starscream could take over that chair too. But we'll see how Megatron fits in it. But this is apparently a Takara product, not necessarily a Takara-Tomy, sorry. Not necessarily a Hasbro product, so I don't know if they released Coronation Starscream in Japan, or if for them this was like the first time using that particular device. But a couple things surprised me about this set, and I am gonna go through these guys one by one, but here's Megatron. And when I ordered it, I wasn't thinking too much about where the figures were coming from. I figured this was probably the Siege Megatron, and it's a similar mold, but not quite exactly. This is Siege Megatron. You can see the sword is different, the back is different, but it's not an original mold or a first time this retooling has been done, because I have over here the Generation 2, and that is the mold that they used. They just made him in his original colors, a little shiny, which is nice. And yeah, just change the deco back. But that's kind of cool. He is a little bit different than the Siege one and transforms more though into an Earth tank than a Cybertronian tank, which is interesting. Now with Shockwave, I figured he was gonna be based on the Siege Shockwave, and I was right. Though they did some nice recoloring. This one is more of a dark purple. This is a lighter purple. And you can see they changed the color of the end of the ship. That's kind of supposed to be his gun nozzle. And they also changed the gun and stuff like that. So I was right about that, but I'm a little surprised with the Soundwave. Instead of becoming that weird ship, that the Siege Soundwave, he's more the later Soundwave. I guess it was Earthrise Kingdom? I don't know. But he changes into a cassette player, just like this one here. And again, some additions to the deco. The color pretty much is the same, but there are some tweaks to the deco, and we will explore those. Chair's the fucking same. Really? Couldn't make it a different color or add some paint? All right, well, let's start out with Megatron. So there he is. I am Megatron, leader of the Decepticons, and you will do exactly what I say. Start with the Macarena. Starscream. Oh, he left with his chair. I had some bad jokes to tell him. So let's first pop this sword turret off his arm, and we'll take his fusion cannon off and just take a look at the deco. Obviously, I am going to do some comparisons to the Siege. He's lighter in color, kind of like the 35th anniversary Siege one, but I definitely see a sheen on him, which is very nice, kind of a premium finish. But definitely the deco has changed a bit. His Decepticon symbol is bigger than the one on the Siege. Don't worry about the size of the symbol, it's how you use it. Right now I'm using Siege Megatron's voice. How dare you? Shockwave, let's kill this guy. I am the original Megatron. Ah! All right, enough. I can play with these later. But definitely a different shade of gray, but changes to the mold. He's a nice guy. Well, he's Megatron, okay, he's not a nice guy. Now, I don't know that I ever did a review on this mold, so I'll just quickly go through his posability. He does have ankle swivels, not a big surprise. Kicks forward, kicking back, he runs into his tread, so that's a problem, but he can do a side kick, bring up the knee, the legs swivel around, so pretty dynamic there. He does twist at the waist, you gotta be aware of the back plate here, but it clears it pretty well. Now I'm noticing that the arms don't seem to want to stay in place here. They kind of pop out very easily, so just not a fun thing. A little bit of overuse of the mold. Arms can go all the way around, you just gotta curve it a little bit to avoid the treads on his back. Obviously he can straight arm or bend his arm, not super far, and it does swivel. The fists themselves do not twist, that's due to the transformation that doesn't allow twisting. I mean, they could have done more, but they didn't. The head, it will look up. It seems a little stiff. That's what she said. And yeah, it is stiff, but you can turn it all around. All right, not loving these shoulders that keep popping out. So shame on you, Takara. Looking at the original, I mean, yes, they pop out, but it takes a good deal more force. So I don't know if you've experienced that, if you've gotten this set, and these are popping out easily for you, let me know in the comments. Wouldn't be a review without the turntable of doom, so you can get a slow look at all his angles. You can see the treads on his back, identical to the ones on the G2 Megatron, and yeah, a decent figure, aside from the problems with his shoulders. All right, now interestingly enough, the transformation instructions show him with his fusion cannon on. You just have to flip it around, and then you get started. All right, and there is Megatron in his tank mode. Very solid looking, but definitely more of an Earth tank, I would say. I put the turret on upside down. All right, there we go. But yeah, definitely looks more of an Earth tank than a Cybertronian tank. Not saying that he couldn't fit in on Cybertron, but definitely more Earth-like. Now, the turret itself can turn pretty much all the way around, so that's impressive. So he can shoot in any direction he'd like, as he wants to do. However, it cannot elevate, cannot change the attitude of this turret. You have a bad attitude. And the back end, I mean, he's got the plate here, but you can still kind of see underneath. So if infantry got up there with a couple, you know, grenades or something, some C4, he could be in trouble. But overall, a nice looking tank, good deco. Doesn't roll for shit. It's got these little itty bitty wheels on the bottom. Of course, this should probably be popped all the way in. That could be part of it. All right, now that we've fixed that little oopsie on my part, still hardly rolls for shit. A little bit better though. Of course, these guys aren't supposed to roll that fast. I mean, I know they were supposed to go at like, I don't know, 35 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour. I don't know what modern tanks can do. They might be able to go much faster, but depends on the terrain and all that shit. Still a nice looking tank. Now, I am going to quickly put Siege Megs into his tank mode, which does have a similar transformation, but you can see he's got the black treads in front, doesn't have the same cover in the front, less coverage in the back. Not as shiny. Both have red detailing where the arms form the turret, but definitely a different style of deco. I'm not gonna bother transforming the G2 one because you know the deco is wildly different. So there's Megatron. I mean, I like the use of this mold. It doesn't make sense on the Nemesis bridge that he's got an Earth mode, but you know, I guess it depends on the story. Maybe they repaired the Nemesis, or it's an entirely different universe, who knows? All right, Shockwave. Let's zoom on him a little bit, and we'll put him on the turntable of doom, so again, you can take a look at him. Again, it's a Siege mold. He doesn't have all the extra accessories, the little flying battle platform, but he's a cool looking version of Shockwave. nonetheless. A lot of people were not pleased that he was basically like a leader price point when it was just all those add-on things. So this is more of, I don't know, slightly more than deluxe, but he's still a cool looking bot. And so he's got a nice deco, again, comparing him to the Siege one, a brighter purple laser instead of, well, that's kind of still purple, but it's almost gray, slightly purple. Purple hands instead of like grayish, purplish hands. I like the deco scheme on this one a bit better. They both have Decepticon symbols on their forearms. Now, interestingly, his is placed higher on his right forearm than the one over here, and same thing on the left forearm. So they kind of avoided the breakup with some of the detail on there. So minor changes, but he's a cool looking bot. And just to quickly go through the posability, very slight ankle swivels, very slight indeed. I don't know if I gave Megatron the Jean-Claude Van Damme test. What am I thinking? Well, we got to get him back in robot mode anyway to try out the throne, so we'll do that then. But full Jean-Claude Van Damme, even though his heels can cause problems and can't really get them out of the way, that's a solid piece. But full Jean-Claude Van Damme, he can kick forward and back pretty well. Side kick, he's got a knee joint, legs ready to pop apart. With a little spike there, cause some damage, swivels all the way around. Nice ratcheting sound there. He twists at the waist all the way around. There's no real ab crunch or anything. The right arm can go all the way around. The left arm, start getting tangled. But they both bend at the elbow. They both have swivels, just a little less mobility because of the cabling. And the head, of course, can turn all the way around, and he can also kind of look up and down a little bit. So overall, same posability. I'm not detecting any flaws because the mold's been used too much or anything like that, so he's still in good shape. All right, let's get him into his weird-ass space cruiser vehicle mode. So there he is in his space cruiser mode. I do kind of like the white in the beginning there, and if you turn him over, you can disguise the fact that the handle's now full and he can fire. Okay, well, maybe not, but he is a interesting looking space cruiser, and there he is next to the Siege one. Now, interestingly, the Siege one, when you plug in the cable to the side, it's kind of loose in there. It's not very tight, so you have to be kind of careful maneuvering it. See, it came right out. And I don't know if that's something with my Siege one or just Siege ones in general. Could plug it in the back instead, and that seems to stay better, but I do have to say the brighter shade of purple, I like it on this guy. The Siege one was intentionally made to look kind of dirty and more realistic. I mean, I'm not saying either of them are realistic, but I kind of like the brighter deco and the adding of the white instead of silver all the time. So, but anyway, there is Shockwave. Now, and it took me a second to realize which Soundwave was which, but here's Soundwave once again. Minor deco changes. The shade of blue might be just a hair darker on the new one, which is interesting. Some deco to note is on his wrists. In fact, I'll take the guns off, and I put yours over here so I don't mix them up. Not that it makes that big of a deal, but we're separating the weapons. So along the wrists, there are red stripes. Along his shoulder cannon, there's a red stripe around the new one in this set. There are red dots on his shoulders, which are not present on the original. The forearms and the silver parts are lighter and look like they have a premium finish. A little duller on the Siege and more gray, though not much of a difference on the colors on the legs. Though the buttons on the butt are a little bit brighter on the new Nemesis bridge set version. So minor changes to the deco. We're gonna put him aside for a moment. And again, if you haven't seen this guy in action, full Jean-Claude Van Damme, not a big shock. Can kick forward. Now he can kick back, but you kind of got to lift his butt plate. And of course to the side, swivels around. And yes, speaking of swivels, he does have a bit of an ankle swivel. Twists all the way around at the waist, which is always nice. No real ab crunch. Arms go around all the way, bends at the elbow, swivels all the way back. Fists do not twist, and his left hand, he's kind of sticking out his first finger. I hate to tell him, but that's not how you tell off the Autobots. But he also can turn his head all the way around. And of course, pressing the button, provided the cassette is in there in a good way, can eject him. And it ejected with such force that Laserbeak started to like fly out. I mean, not a ton of changes to this guy, minor changes, minor deco changes. He's nice, but if you were only getting this set for the Soundwave, I'd say pass. But with the other two, you might want to get them for the deco, and you get another Soundwave with slightly improved deco. Slightly shinier, maybe, but okay. Now, one thing that he has, I was thinking these things on his arms, which are, I believe, part of the transformation, you could swing them out, and they're kind of little, like, stealth blasters. So they, like, knock the weapons out of his hands. You can just, like, flip one of those out and shoot him right in the heart. But all right, let's transform him, which first part is we take off this, and then we go to town. And there he is in his tape deck mode, technically a micro cassette player, and you can see him at all angles. It's great that he has weapon storage on his back for all those weapons. And interestingly, those things that I were like, hey, these can be wrist guns, they don't really, I mean, they plug in for the transformation, but that swinging out thing doesn't happen during the transformation. So maybe they are supposed to be stealth guns and just kind of like an undocumented feature. At least I don't see documentation on here about them. And I don't remember when I got this one making any note of those, but that's kind of cool. And there you have them side by side. I mean, the deco really in this mode, not all that different. The only things are the lighter shade of gray / silver as opposed to the dark gray. And the fact that the cover plate doesn't want to stay on this one could be me. But yeah, there you have them. On the back, you can see more of the deco changes because you can see the wrists. But from the front, doesn't really look any different. And there goes Laserbeak practically flying out. Now, Laserbeak, are there any real differences with him? Well, I mean, this one, I might have grabbed the wrong one. This might be the first Siege one. So brighter colors on this one. I'm not gonna bother if there's minor deco changes with him. You can definitely discover him. This is not gonna make or break the set. But overall, a good Laserbeak, and this Laserbeak definitely has more of a Cybertronian feel. This one has more of an Earth feel to him. All right, time to see how Megatron looks in the chair. Now, if you want to see it for yourself and you happen to have the G2 Megatron and the Coronation Starscream, you can just do it yourself, test it out. But so once again, we have Megatron, and once again, his shoulders don't like to stay in. But in case you were curious, well, Jean-Claude Van Damme, no problem. All right, let's get him into the seated position and put him, and he does fit. Now, if you look from the side, his treads make sure that his butt is like way forward on the seat. So basically he's on the edge of his seat, which to be fair, Starscream is pretty much on the edge of his seat too. So maybe that's just how Transformers are, or maybe he's like leaning forward in anticipation. Look at this Transformers 1 trailer. I am very curious to see what happens with this Orion Pax and me. So I have to say it's a good set, particularly if you don't have any of these figures. It's a great set. And I do like the new deco, and I do like the set of them, but just keep in mind, they are pretty much just repaints of figures that you already have. You probably figured that out, so it's a cool set to have. Unlike some of my other warriors, you never fail me, Laserbeak. I know I'm slightly paraphrasing, but there you have it. So this set was like $109.95 or some shit like that. So figure Megatron was like 30. I think without the extra pieces, he'd be like 30. So that's 60. He would be, I think he was Voyager. So that's another 30. And so you're paying basically an extra $20 for the chair and the fact that it's coming from Takara-Tomy and has some neat deco. So it's a cool set. If you're a completist like me, I recommend it. Again, if you don't have the figures, I recommend it. Even if you do have the figures and you like this version of the tank, as opposed to the Siege tank, which is, again, not quite Earth-like. Again, the logic, I'm not quite sure. And I mean, I do appreciate the new deco. Soundwave, the tiny little bits of details wouldn't be enough if they had released him on his own. With these slight changes to the deco, I probably wouldn't bother. But since it's part of the set, it sounds pretty cool. Poor Laserbeak. Here, Soundwave's more stable. Okay, maybe not. So you have the Nemesis bridge set. It does not have a diorama like the Studio series that you could set up like walls behind them, but it's a nice 3-figure set. 4 if you count Laserbeak. So yeah, I would definitely say it's worth it if you don't mind the repaints and stuff like that. I love repaints. But I've had fun with this set. I hope you had fun watching this video, as much fun as I have making these videos. And while you are mulling over whether you want to get this set, if it's even still available, I will put some links in the description to these guys wherever they may be found. You might want to check out this video over here, which is actually the evolution of Shockwave. So you can see many of his various incarnations through the 40 years that he's been around. Because he was in the first episode of Transformers, even if the toy wasn't quite out yet. And we will see you next time. As always, have fun and good hunting.